The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, the Biden administration wants to make the U.S. a world leader in lithium-ion batteries. So necessary. Solar and Storage Northeast, we're going to get a recap from my co-host, John Weaver. And the Senate passed a $250 billion tech investment bill. We're going to talk about that. And are you going to be able to pay for an autonomous vehicle ride in California in 2021? Find out. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour, my co-host, the commercial solar guy, John Weaver.
Timothy, hope everything's going well for you. I hear that you're recording this show from a remote, secret, undisclosed location. Is this true?
The solar coaster is on the road. That's what I call my microgrid on wheels, my vintage Ford Catalina RV. And it's a beautiful thing having a battery in the bunker and a cellular router in the closet and a solar array on the roof. So yes, life is good.
That's pretty cool.
But John, you went to Boston to a live event, and that is earth-shattering, really. The age of COVID might be over. So I want to hear, what was that like going to a face-to-face conference in Boston?
Well, first off, it was just cool to see human beings and shake some hands and walk around in a room, see some solar hardware. All of that was nice. What was really funny is that now that I've learned about aerosols and how they work and how we're really just one giant human organism interconnected with each other, it just kept coming back to my face that I am breathing in all of these wonderful human beings. And it was just kind of an interesting thought. It was so cool to see people, to see some friends, to drink some beers. It felt normalish all day long, hanging out, shaking hands. Baker, our governor, he cut back our restrictions about 2-3 weeks ago. So I was really quite impressed that they were able to bring it together. And it's a very small show, so it's nothing like SPI, which gets like 20,000 people. But it was still, it had a good amount of people there. We filled up, lots of handshaking. Personally, I had a couple of nice conversations that were important. I got to meet a few people that I just really wanted to have another conversation with. And, hopefully that helps, create some more trust as you work, as you talk, because, that's, I guess, one of the best of meeting people. And now you got my pictures. I took a few pictures just because I was, always liking to take some pictures. That's pretty cool. That's that's a modern, quick porta potty version. And if you check out the next image, that's your bag. So you can use it two or three times or something like that. We all got free samples. He did not ask, we weren't allowed to use them there, but we could have. He had a little tent.
And what is the market that they're targeting with these portable bathrooms and battery technology, I guess?
He says they're cheap enough that you can keep one on the truck, and they pencil better than a full unit being deployed for a 2-3 day project. He says he put a cost on one. He said one of these are a few $100, and it's quick, it's cheap, it gets the job done, and it's great for a short project. So short projects is the key pitch, I believe.
So just instead of having a full-blown porta potty, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about the rental cost of those units versus the purchase price and the very small amount of space. He goes, you could fit it in a bucket.
Well, this is really cool. This photo of these electronic circuit breakers. I think there is a revolution coming in circuit breaker technology, is there not?
I mean, absolutely. Right now we still have those static units, click, click, nice and hard, but we're going to have every plug eventually be watched, probably, unless hackers defeat us and get into our houses and we decide we'll stay dumb with a plug. But I think, if you have every plug hooked up and then you start getting fun with, say, demand response, your demand response numbers can be through the roof if you can literally shut off, start ranking every single plug up until the point where you say, nope, can't shut this one off. We could get really, really specific in how we do things and how we manage our grid. So
Yeah.
I do think there's circuit technology coming that's going to change the panel. Span has one, this group has one. All the other big pretty groups are really thinking hard about this. Eaton has a neat one that's Wi-Fi. Other home automation companies. It's probably going to come from the home automation world. Yeah, but
I dream of the day when you install a battery and a microgrid. So you install a battery and a solar array. Today, if you want to have that microgrid capability, you have to install some additional switchgear. And tomorrow, with an intelligent switch, right, then you don't need that probably. And so that's really how the built environment should be. It should just be plug and play. You can add a solar array, add a storage facility, microgrid, have, just program it on your iPhone, right? These are the loads I want to meet with my when I'm off grid, so to speak, and that kind of thing.
it's every little piece. Every little piece is going to be added up and used. So we could talk about this one forever.
So what is imaging? The drone is on screen now, but
Yep.
and I did a great interview with Scanifly, and they are a scanning company that is they're trying to get installers to move away from having to walk rooftops and climb ladders. And I get it. Drones are awesome for getting there faster. And if once the technology gets robust enough, then it'll come into the commercial world too. I don't know. What is imaging doing?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Their pricing structure is a little more unique. They sell you on a number of scans. I think that was the biggest piece that they really talked about, was that their pricing structure was unique. And I was just kind of poking around. I think it's pretty solid. The tools, I haven't used them yet though. We use Helioscope for our first round stuff. In-house, we haven't done too many exacting designs yet for our CNI. Most of it's been done outside by the PEs, but we have a PE who's working with us very close. So we may start doing more of our own system layouts and getting a lot more specific. Right now, we're using Helioscope and we're close, but it's never perfect. And if this can output straight to CAD files, it has an automated, actually, it has one thing different than Scanify I know of. When you take it to a site, you give it the building and it automatically tracks its path. And I believe, at least per what the gentleman said at the booth, Scanify requires you to do it properly or fly it yourself. So there's some other nuances, but the rough one is that to get 35, I think you have a minimum purchase of 35 scans maybe, or 30 scans, and they're like $75 a piece, something like that. That's the starting purchase level. They get all the way down to like $50 a scan, something like that. And the scan is up to 10,000 square feet of roof space.
But so is it more just scan as a service then? They're not trying to get you to buy a whole package, but just buy the scans?
Yeah, they're not selling you the drone. They're all they're doing is selling really some AI and
Yeah.
some AI being applied against your images. So they're selling you CAD files, super, hopefully really accurate, fast CAD files. So I guess you want to balance it out against the amount of time it takes for a human being to walk a roof, in comparison to your module counts being off, in comparison to your your AutoCAD time and fine tuning. I hypothetically, I'd love the concept. We haven't needed it too much. Our site plans and our AutoCADs have been okay. I can think of a project recently where we were off by a couple of feet based on code, but that may have been because somebody purposely wanted an extra row of panels versus, and we got within 3 feet instead of 4 feet. So that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. The Biden administration wants the U.S. to not fall behind in the race for lithium-ion batteries. And this story comes to us from Jeff St. John at Canary Media. He is a wonderful resource for us in the battery world. And I don't know where that photo is from, but that is one of the coolest battery photos I've ever seen. I just love the yellow cells or modules, and those are some honking big batteries. But the scary thing is, John, and this is on screen now, this table, is that China is producing 65% of anodes and electrolyte solution, and the US is only producing 10% and 2% of those two major components of batteries. And so clearly we need the government to incentivize more onshoring of manufacturing and R&D. And this is going to, if it comes to fruition, they're asking, I think, for an additional $200 million for, $200 million in the 2022 budget of DOE to support battery technology research and development. And and this is relevant to Jigar Shah's office, the loan programs office as well, because some of these monies will go out in the form of loans to these R&D companies. So what are your thoughts about the US keeping up with China and other large battery makers?
One thing I thought that was interesting with this push is that Biden said, we don't need to lead in raw mineral extraction. We have plenty of partners across the world who are fair actors. And it's okay if we're not the extraction leaders. But he referenced value add leaders or value add defense. And this is called industrial policy. The United States doesn't have much industrial policy. We let the markets decide. And we have mostly maybe some military policy, some procurement policy. There are super important facilities around the world that we track, and we're okay with letting the world manage its resources. I saw Simon Moores, a benchmark utilities guy. He says there's over 200 gigafactories in the pipeline now, and 160 of them are Chinese. That's awesome to some degree. We will have to deal with batteries, and we will have to pay for them. It would be good if we made some of our own. Logically, it'd be cool if every country in the world made some of their own solar panels and some of their own batteries. That would just be cool. But it's different than oil. Once you get some batteries, you don't need to keep buying new batteries. Once you have your batteries, they're in place and they're running. And so it's not like they can, strategically and suddenly cut us off from batteries. We're gonna have some batteries. We're already gonna have the batteries. If they then say, hey, we're not gonna give you any more batteries, we're gonna go, okay, we're in time of war. We'll just start burning some oil again. And we'll just keep what we're doing, because we're definitely not outpacing our power grid shutdowns with our additions. We're letting our shutdowns take their time. So I'm not so worried about the defense ability of the nation state. I think we're doing good enough. We have partners. Maybe we could do better. We should probably just do better, just because we could make some money as a country and get some more jobs. That'd be cool. More scientists, more design. It's complex. It's big. We might be big at that. We might be good at batteries. Maybe not. We might be good at solar panels. Maybe not. I think we should do it. We should definitely push it. We should invest. We have cheap capital. We have a nation state with some cool goals, and we should invest. But I'm not, it's not emotional for me. The whole world's going to do this.
Yeah, this is a national security issue, I think, and it's an economic issue. There's obviously going to be terawatts and terawatts of batteries sold into the global economy. And why shouldn't the United States capture a significant portion of that? I mean, 10%, that just feels too measly considering our stature as a global economy, a global tech hub, and a huge workforce. Now, we're only 5% of the global population, but um, it seems like a missed opportunity if we don't. And as we're going to talk about with another initiative, which was an actual bill uh, focused more on the semiconductor industry, the long-term national security issues here are very real and prescient for me, certainly. Yeah, it's great if you have oil that you can fall back on. And for now we have that, but there will come a day when we don't have that. And so you just really want to be self-reliant if you can be. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
So the Senate passed a 250 billion tech investment bill, and this includes a 50 billion emergency allotment to the Commerce Department to stand up semiconductor development and manufacturing through R&D incentive programs. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to put the NPR story on screen, but I heard an analysis by the Daily podcast that the New York Times publishes, and this really is a national security issue and a huge economic issue. As we've seen, there's a chip shortage going on globally, and it has forced some automakers to stop making cars, right? Or they're making 3/4 of a car, but don't have the chips to install the computers in the cars. And so everything has computer chips in it nowadays, right? And I mean, batteries are a good 30 years probably behind the semiconductor industry. Um, and the US was a leader. And, back in 1990, we had 37% of the market in semiconductor manufacturing. That is now 12%. So I think the US has kind of woken up, so to speak. And this is relevant to the war on China that the Trump administration kind of started. And while I don't want us to go to war with China, I want us to collaborate and continue the mutual beneficial economic exchange that we have. I also am sensitive to the cybersecurity risks in chip manufacturing, which have been proven out. And they referenced this in the podcast on the Daily, that some transformers uh, that were manufactured in Asia showed up in the US, and they realized that they had been fitted to be remotely controlled by a third party. And so, when the grid goes down, bad things happen today because we don't have microgrids. And that is, the risk that we are facing with these semiconductors.
So I like computer chip investment because computer chips are human brains somehow. That's just how I look at it. I read a lot of Isaac Asimov, and they talked about making chips. I remember a book I read, I can't remember it now, where they make super smart robots, and it was actually illegal to make the robot with certain traits. And computer just sure. You know what? It is true. From a chip standpoint, without a doubt, nations across the world are experts at injecting code into computer chips and making them do stuff. I've read some really cool stuff of how the NSA would hack different hardware as it traveled from, say, a computer company to an owner of the chip. Different, lots of national security stuff. I mean, everybody hacks these. But it kind of makes me happy that they're so important because they're so important. And if we look at them and invest in them in different ways, um, I'm just bullish on spending some research money, some fundamental research money on computer chips. I love what Google's doing with their quantum stuff. There's I can't remember their name right now, but a company from Canada who was early phase, like 10 years ago, doing quantum-ish stuff. And I just love this concept. We're at like 2 nanometer for certain aspects of the chip now. I read something about IBM recently. It's pretty cool. I want us to keep doing whatever we can with chips. And if it's national security that drives it, because we want to make super smart robots, great. I'm afraid that they might use those chips to make semi-human autonomous things. But speaking of autonomous things, there's some chips in these cars.
Yeah, and before we go to the story about Waymo,
Mm.
Waymo and Cruise and autonomy, this your little riff there made me wonder, if you could upload your brain to the internet, would you?
I don't want to give up this thing I have so far. Like, I like the meat body thing. I might be biased to the meat body thing. But if I'm like an 83-year-old guy and they're like, okay, you got like 5 years, buddy, 2 years, 1 year, or we can experiment with you, inject you, and you'll still be able to hold on to some semblance of self, because I'd be a scared little kid otherwise. We'll put you in this robot, in this computer. Heck yeah, why not? I used to jokingly, semi-jokingly, say that or one potential future timeline that I would be interested in is the one where we learn how to make small autonomous-ish ships that are big enough to hold a human brain and all the support systems that it need to get to stars. And then we would just launch them out of the solar system as fast as we could and just shoot ourselves, just our brains, and use the brain, like have all kinds of little metal pinchers stuck into it so it can control the ship. And then we fly our brains to planets around these stars, hopefully. And then, of course, we bring a bunch of human reproductive material, and hopefully we could be the aliens from the sky that help populate these planets with. This is like what they did in Star Trek. That was one of the reason that there were so many hominids that were similar is that 5 billion years ago, an old society that was tall, bipedal, very looked like us, they seeded the universe with versions of life that were similar-ish, and they picked environments where they're like, yeah, this will work, and they just started the evolutionary tree that would lead toward similar-ish life to them. And that'd be cool, shoot me into space, dude.
Yeah, I mean, eventually space travel has to become photonic to be efficient. And then you do want to be able to upload your brain and just go as a stream of ones and zeros. So let's talk about autonomy. I love autonomy. That's why I bought a Tesla. I want to have a robo-taxi in my driveway that I can turn into a cash machine when I'm not using the car. That dream, I have to say, is elusive, and it's very hard to know when that's going to be available. But Cruise and Waymo are also pounding the pavement on this problem. And what's the story here in California?
Well, so California has some laws that, for instance, say if somebody's driving a car, you have to have somebody in the front seat. You can't have passengers riding in a car that's autonomous. They allow a couple of people to test autonomous already. And so there are allowed to be on public roads some sort of testing, and so there's limitations. In Phoenix, you can actually call up a Waymo and it'll just show up and drive you around town. But Phoenix is like a very simple grid city. But what's big now is that Cruise and Waymo are applying for this new pilot program. And this pilot program is the first time that they're allowed for things to start moving forward. And with the driverless stuff. So it's really what this is an article about the bureaucracy slowly moving through the process. And Waymo and Cruise, two brand names, are looking to put their cars out there and want to make money. So they both applied for permits, and I think I'm trying to find the date. Let's see, that they're looking to work. I guess it doesn't say the date that they're looking to bring it on, but they submitted the proposal. So it might be that you can, in California, in a big market, take open roads and get an EV driving you around. Well, I don't know about the Cruise, but the Waymo is, I believe. And that's it. Like, we're literally, I mean, I don't know if you want to call us autonomous driving, but it's close enough. Get me a cab. One really interesting thing about autonomous driving is they're suggesting that the cost per mile can get down to like a nickel, 5 cents, 10 cents, a penny. Like, the IRS pays us like 55.5 cents every time we drive our car for business stuff. And that's because that stuff's expensive. Tires, O&M, all the stuff you got to do.
When you say 15 cents or a nickel, you're talking per mile?
Yeah.
Yeah. Currently when you take an Uber, it's about $1 a mile.
Yeah.
And so when you take the driver out of the equation, you're losing jobs, and that's a concern. Okay. Andrew Yang is famous for really drilling this point home, that drivers are a very popular class of worker in the United States: truck drivers, taxi drivers, delivery drivers, etc. But the fact that they've tested these vehicles now for 80,000+ miles it's only in certain cities, right? San Francisco.
Yes. Very, very few.
And they're using LiDAR. They're reliant on, having a very good map of the city. The car is completely reliant on knowing where it is relative to the built environment. It's a different approach than Tesla's using. Tesla's just trying to say, hey, we're going to have a car that's smart enough to know where it's safe to drive and where it's not. We don't need the map. We're going to have an AI that's going to see the world and make sense of it. And obviously they're not there. And I don't know, the debate is out on LiDAR. Is it a good technology, bad technology? I think it's a both and. It's like, yeah, if you can solve this with vision, great. But if you need LiDAR, that's fine too. I don't care. I just want autonomy. And I want to be able to sit in the back of my car and work while it's taking me someplace. And eventually people won't even own cars, John. That's cool, right? Why own that big hunk of steel and batteries and chips if you don't have to?
So the driver job thing is interesting. When I started thinking about autonomy, I remember where I was working. It was somewhere in like 2013 or 14. I was working at a place in Miramar. And the office was, just a big standard square corporate office. And in this area, the roads are just there's 4 lanes, 5 lanes, 6 lanes everywhere. You're going 60 miles an hour, but it still takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get anywhere because everything's so far away, and one stoplight, and it's just a lot of space in South Florida. Things are spread out. And I always imagined that I wish I had an autonomous car where it showed up, but instead of having a driver, it had a sushi chef. And the sushi chef would make me food on the way to the gym. And then the car that came back, or maybe I have to flip this around. The car out there had a person to help stretch me. and set my workouts. And it had a little room so I could change into my gym clothes. And then maybe on the car back, had a little shower and a sushi thing to feed me. And because driving around is a waste of freaking time, dude. Like the amount of time, you always read these little studies. You spend this many weeks of your life in traffic. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. So it would be really neat if the autonomous car led to unique products within the car. I do think that autonomous cars will create a whole bunch of jobs in small cities. And the way to work is that we're going to purchase pre-planned vacations. And these pre-planned vacations will be people who program cool places to visit. And these people will program places to eat. It'd be, you know, what was it called? An agent, a vacation agent, travel agent. And they say, hey, go here, go here, go here. I one time took a trip to Asia. I was there for 2 months, China, Pakistan, Hong Kong. It's pretty solid. And a month of it was planned, part of a really smart group of people. And it was just pretty neat. The United States is a giant place. Europe, giant place, big network of highways. I once read about a guy who rode a bike from like England to India. Man, if I could get in a car in London, like cruise around England, the car letting it cruise, taking me to cool places, and then it can just say, okay, we're going to Paris now. Sweet. You know, we're going to, that would be so neat, man. I would work from my laptop. I would work so hard because people would be like, what are you doing tonight? I'm going to see the Eiffel Tower, dude. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm going to be in New York City. Man, I'd work. I'd work hard. I'd work in the car at night, do things in the daytime. It would be a really interesting societal shift if surface level transportation was heavily evolved. I bet you it's another one of these things that when we look back, we're going to be like, oh yeah, it took a human being, you know, a month to move this distance in the year 0. And then in the year 100, it took them this time. And then the average speed was this. And then, you know, there's some cool books out there about flying cars that for every second they travel more efficiently across the earth. It's this cool three book series I read. And part of it was about flying cars. And they said for every second or minute, they saved humanity billions of years in car wasted time. And so it was just really transportation, autonomous, I think could kill some driving jobs, a couple million of them. Yep. But I think they'll bring back a lot of weird things in other kinds of business in the travel entertainment industry. I hypothesize.
Yeah, I do think it's going to open some doors that we don't know exist, and it will create some new segments of the economy. So I definitely want it, and I know I'm not alone, right? So traffic is no fun, and it's dangerous. The autonomous vehicles are 90% at least safer than human drivers once everything is autonomous and the cars can talk to each other, right? The accidents go way down, and we're killing tens of thousands of people a year in the US alone. I think it's upwards of 1 million people globally. So that that's that alone, right, is reason enough, I think, to really step on the gas with autonomy if we can. We should probably move on though. We have some good news in the solar industry this week, and that is that Assembly Bill 1139 in California fell short by 2 votes.
Oof.
That bill, I'm going to put this on screen now, was known as the anti-solar bill. And they were trying, the utilities were, and it's not, the fight isn't over. Okay. This is about Net Energy Meeting, or NEM, in California. And if you want to get a great recap of the fight and what the struggle is, check out episode 377 of the Suncast podcast with Nico Johnson. He interviews the director of the Solar Rights Alliance, and they do a nice recap of what's going on in California, what's what has transpired and what the reality is. So anyway, net energy metering, squashing that has failed. That's the good news. I don't want to dwell too long on this story, but Solar Rights Alliance is a fantastic organization. Dave Rosenfeld is the director, and that's who the interview is with. But if you're not fighting a net energy metering or net metering fight in your state, in your region today, you will be, right? The utilities are always trying to push back on this, claiming that it threatens their economic well-being. And I go to a place of, we're going to triple the grid when we electrify transportation and HVAC. There's going to be plenty of new infrastructure needed. The utilities are going to be just fine if they would just get on the bandwagon and join the clean energy economy explosion instead of pushing back on it. We would all be better off.
That's actually a good point. There's going to be a bigger pie. All the data I say puts the amount of rooftop solar at 20, 30, 40% of our US electricity, over 40 to 50%. But if we're going to double the grid, HVAC is going to be huge. I'm just starting to grasp HVAC stuff. I'm learning more about it. Heat pumps. Heat pumps do not generate heat. Did you know that, Tim? Of course you knew that, probably because you know a lot about heat pumps. Heat pumps move heat. They pump heat. That's how they can be more efficient. It's taken me a while to grasp some of these concepts, but with that, we are going to grow more, and I think that's a good point. That if we got to get these utilities to be cool. Well, you know what? They're never going to be cool with net metering, to be blunt, and that's one reason I support it so much. Is that this is just a natural David versus Goliath. Self-interested, profit-driven individuals who are just fine squashing a whole bunch of people they don't know because it keeps their money flowing. And so utilities will never support net metering. And they've said it. They've said they're going to bring the fight to net metering to every single state in the United States. That's just how it's going to work. And so I specifically want net metering just to keep the fight back, because you have to. You have to force them to fight, because the utilities will be dumb. In California, they're getting pretty far along. They still need individual support because the utilities there are just as aggressive. PG&E is incompetent. PG&E murdered people because of their incompetence. SoCal Edison, one of the gas unions down there at a town meeting where they were considering outlawing gas, they said, listen, if you even discuss this, we're going to bring a whole bunch of people who might have COVID and cause a big argument in your town hall meeting. I mean, that was his threat. That was this union leader's threat. This is how we're going to protect our union jobs. We're going to use germ warfare. I mean, that's really what it was. We're gonna bring a bunch of COVID people and cause some issues. So I like net metering. I'm happy California didn't use this version of the net metering law change. There is going to be a change coming though, and California needs to manage its structure. They probably need to give more value to remote assets properly. Will Driscoll, he writes for PV Magazine. He does a lot of thinking about other ways he covers the research papers of a lot of these smaller things, like giving homeowners the access to the wholesale market, real-time electricity pricing. And because it could allow homeowners to be part of the bigger power grid, have more value on the grid. And it's going to evolve. Net metering, I think, really should be there. Net metering is important.
Well, it's essential for consumers and business owners who want to achieve a reasonable ROI, right, when they install solar and storage. If you don't have good net metering rules, then the payback period just becomes very long, and it disincentivizes people from adopting clean energy. So let's talk about wind. You have found a story about wind offshore here in the US. And something called the Offshore Wind Business Association. What is the deal here? I'm going to put this image on screen.
So this is the US government. This is partially pushed by Jigar Shah's group, Department of Energy, but they're looking at the fact that we're building offshore wind up and down the East Coast.
Business Network for Offshore Wind. What is that?
Yeah, they're the one posting it, but this is, and so what they're trying to do is tie together all of these offshore wind plants and give them the ability to hypothetically inject their electricity anywhere up and down the East Coast.
Mhm.
That's pretty sweet. This is being pushed by Department of Energy to start researching it. But if we had a power grid, offshore power grid, and we drop, well, you know what? Here, I don't even have to say exaggerating numbers. I put another little article just down there. There's an article from GE, and GE is starting work on a 12 megawatt floating unit, and the unit and in their headline, they specifically say it would dramatically expand the potential of US offshore wind resources to more than 7,000 terawatt hours per year, double the total US consumption of 4,000 terawatt hours per year. So if we can do this one well, this offshore floating wind thing, and then we can interconnect it well, we have the space to power us with wind. And then if we distribute it up and down the coasts from, we'll probably even go up to Canada, just go as far north as we can, as far south as we can, throw it into the Gulf of Mexico, up and down the West Coast. We're going to be fine, dude. We're going to have more energy than we can deal with. And it's going to be distributed across broad markets. And the biggest potential competition with solar power is not nuclear, it's not gas, it's not coal, it's going to be wind. We're going to have it in the coasts, and we're going to have it in the middle of the country. And if we're just smart enough to let it be pumped east and west, north and south, as far as we can, oh man, we'll have solar plus batteries, which will be like our base load. And then we'll have this random variability of wind that'll pump our batteries and just flush us with cheap, clean, wind-powered energy, man. I just see massive amounts of electricity available from wind and solar, just so much.
Yeah, I think, of course, we energy professionals know that there are way, way more resources in wind and solar than society uses. The number in solar is 10,000 times. I don't know what that number is in wind, but it's many times. And so, as Jigar says, it's just about deploy, deploy, deploy. We just need to build it out, and we can absolutely make the energy transition. You found it a funny, it's not funny really, but it's a funny photo of the hazards of the fossil economy. And I'm going to put this on screen now. This is
Got to maximize that one, man. Make that one big.
Tehran's.
Somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah, I had to
There you
fast
go.
forward
It's
a little
starting.
bit because I wanted to get to the action.
Oh, Tim. Boom.
Yeah, that is not a happy explosion.
You can see the tank split open, like at some level where there were pumps coming out of it. You just see the walls just like dunk, just split right open. Foomp. Big bada boom.
It's amazing that the person who shot this on their phone was at the right place at the right time. I wonder.
Nah, I think that's like a security camera. I think that's a phone
Oh.
looking at a security camera. So you
I
have
see.
somebody using their, yeah. Yeah, that's a risk. That's a risk, man. It's real interesting there. We could follow it with a funny one if you wanted. Just, a really cute one so that we don't have, balance out the stress.
Sure, we can do this funny one. from everything space. I don't know how you find this stuff, John, but what is the funny tweet you found?
Okay, so first click on the left image. And this is actually a thing I like. This is why I like this one for multiple reasons. So the New York Times says right before the Wright brothers do their flight, we're never going to fly. It's not possible. Blah, blah, blah. And I like this history that we've collected of naysayers being wrong. I have a website that I like to share with people whenever somebody says never. And then it's just literally, it's a list of people who were wrong. And so this headline says, man will not fly for 1,000,000 years. And here on the right, we see man flying on frickin' Mars, dude. So people are wonderful, beautiful, loving, soft, great creatures. We're also dumb. So, we're bags of meat, smart meat, but meat and bone. And it's whenever, I don't, there's tons of things I'm like, nah, you're wrong, you're a fool. And, I go that way. But then I also think I just got to shut up sometimes and let people chase their dreams and ideas, as long as it's not hurting people, and be like, okay, I think that's absolutely crazy, but cool, you be you. And let people try to fly on Mars, dude. Because New York Times was wrong, and so was another person, really important person, like Lord somebody, Lord Albert, whatever, who was a super famous scientist who was the head of like Oxford at the time, so an important science chair. And he was like, we'll never fly. He's like in the year 1899. It's like, yep, you were wrong. And New York Times was wrong. And people are wrong all the time, dude. So
Yep.
you be you.
That's why Elon says, I just want to be less wrong. We are
Less-
mostly
hey.
wrong.
That's cool. I like that line. Less wrong. Perfect.
So let's wrap up with this story from Midwest Energy News, or the Energy News Network, about an analysis in Ohio that was done on the possibilities for the Ohio economy if they were to make their clean energy policies more robust. This title is Analysis Suggests Climate Policy in Ohio Could Save the World as Much as $1 trillion. And this firm, Scioto Analysis, I'm sure I'm butchering the name, concluded that adopting any of three major climate policies in the state, a renewable portfolio standard, which I consider fundamental, cap and trade, or a carbon tax, would help society avoid up to $1 trillion over the next 3 years. Now, what we're talking about is when you incentivize the clean energy economy, I've gone blurry, but we'll soldier forth. When you incentivize the clean energy economy with a renewable portfolio standard, like we have in Illinois, like you have in Massachusetts, like we have in New York and New Jersey, anywhere that you have a robust clean energy industry, you more than likely have an RPS. Not always, but more than likely. And because that's setting explicit targets that you're going to green the grid over in a fixed period of time. In Illinois, we just are trying to get to 25% by 2025. We're struggling. We're about to get new legislation, which I know we talked about this on the last show. We have really major good new legislation coming in Illinois. It did not get voted on yet, but they're going to have a special session hopefully next week. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be popping the champagne next week on the Clean Power Hour. But, and then these other considerations, cap and trade and a carbon tax. I don't understand cap and trade very well. I do understand a carbon tax, which is, like a gasoline tax, right? If you have a technology that puts a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, you put a tax on it because that has a price for human health, and it has a price for the economy when climate chaos takes shape and there's fires, floods, droughts, etc., there's a cost, right? And so when you build that cost into the technology, then it levels the playing field and makes it easier for people to adopt the clean alternatives. And this is time and time again, John, we see these reports showing that this is not only just really good for humanity, it's really good for the economy. And in this case, to the tune of $1 trillion. So I like this story. Ohio is not, is not a hotbed of renewable energy yet. There's some utility scale stuff happening, but the DG market is pretty dead. So, will it happen? Who knows? It's a question of when, not if, I guess. Everyone's going there, and it's those states. If you're a leader, if you're an elected official, if you're a business leader, you want to be at the bleeding edge of the clean energy transition, because it's going to draw the best talent to your state. It's going to draw the best entrepreneurs. It's going to create a more vibrant economy. It's a snowball effect that is just a win-win.
I don't know if you saw the headline, but First Solar just announced they're doubling their Ohio facility to 3.6 gigs. I mean, it's nothing like the Chinese facilities that are like 60 gigs with everything on site, but 3.6 ain't bad. That's the largest in the Western Hemisphere. You take it.
Yeah, First Solar is very innovative company, and one of the few true blue American solar panels left in the market. That, we were talking about the semiconductor industry earlier in the show. What we're trying to avoid here is what happened in the solar industry, in the solar panel manufacturing industry, right? It was an American industry, really. But the Chinese created better industrial policy that incentivized that industry in China, and it worked. And the US has struggled to remain competitive. And sure, we have some panel assembly plants, but we don't have the soup to nuts manufacturing the way China does in the solar panel manufacturing.
All right, Tom,
So,
Tim, are you saying we gotta leave now? Are you saying I gotta go
time to
back to do
go.
work?
How can our listeners find you, John Weaver, the commercial solar guy?
I tell people to go to an east-facing window and be really loud and just scream it out. That's my model. If you have another model, I go for it. You could also go to Google and type in my name, and I'll pop up everywhere. Commercial solar guys on every social media thing, because I have way too much free time and I like to post stuff. So if you like
famous, are you the most famous John Weaver on earth?
John Fitzgerald Weaver, there's a John Weaver I know of who's a politician who recently got in a little bit of extra trouble, and his name comes up before me. But John Fitzgerald Weaver, I'm number one.
Yep. Nice. Well, you can find me.
Are you the top Tim Montague?
I don't know.
Have you ever searched?
I'm on the first page. Let's put it that way.
Timothy.
But you can find me at cesnrg.com. If you go to /podcast, you'll find all of the solar podcast interviews that we do here and all of the clean power hours. And what we want you to do is, of course, listen to the show. You can listen to it on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify or your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the channel on whatever platform, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give it a thumbs up, give it a rating, give it a review, share it with your friends, and please make comments, reach out to us. We want to hear from you so that we know what you care about and what we can do better. I want to thank you, John, for joining me again, and let's grow solar and storage. I'm Tim Montague.